Hello, hello, developers. Welcome to Elixir Pro. This is our second class about building APIs using Elixir. And in this class, you are going to learn how to use the Ecto and the Changesets. I'm going to explain to you every step that we are going to build. We're going to review our application. And what we are going to do is start understanding some steps about the Ecto and the four main components to work with the Ecto as well. And after that, we're gonna start building, and I hope to finish our class explaining, or maybe start creating categories. But let's go ahead. I'm gonna share my screen right now. So this is our application. Mike, this is one of my students in Brazil. Hello, Mike. Good to see you here again. And one of the things that we're going to do is create another branch that we can call class 2. And now let's make a review what we did and then start refactoring our code and prepare our application to use the Ecto. So when I execute mix test watch, as I mentioned to you, we are gonna do everything using TDD. Let me check what's happening here because as I remember, we installed all those plugins, but probably I did not create a pull request. So let me check this one. Back and here. Elix Pro Backend. So this is our application. Let me check our branch. Let me check if I create a PR. As I remember, yeah, I think that I did not create my PR. So we have 12 files changed. So let me do it. And now let me go again to, let me move to our main branch again. Git pull rebase. Mix that dot get again. Install the new plugins over here, and then we can start our application. So now let's use the mixtest.watch in our main branch first. It's gonna compile some files. Let's wait for a little while. After, while this is compiling, let's check, for example, our backend web over here. Then we have our API, and we will do have our controller and category test as well here. So basically, let me think about a better way. No, this is what's happening. The test is gonna start running, okay, which is really great for now. Let me think about this. This is still compiling, and I don't like that. I was not expecting for that. So I thought that I had merged my branch with the main. So my apologize for that. And Unfortunately, we need to wait for a little while. And unfortunately, I am the live. So let me check what I can do to make this step easier and faster. So so what we can do is that I'm gonna modify some steps over here while this is compiling, and I will explain to you every step. You will understand. I would love to show you using the tests, but it won't be possible for now. But we can keep coding, and the result will be almost the same. So here, one of the things that you can notice is that we are using to test, instead of using our one of the modules using Elixir, we are using the path to our URL, to our API. So what we have to do is that using some tools that Elixir provide to us. So to do that, I'm gonna start my application, show you some steps over here. Let me start the application. And one of the things that we can do to make our test easier to manipulate and easier to provide good feedbacks is that, let me just block one people here. Okay, so one of the things that we can do is, if you go to connection case, the folder is test, support, and connection case. As you can see, we have the backend.router.helpers, and then we have an alias. This alias is basically is that routes over here, and we can use that to build a better application. So, but before, I'm gonna show you something which is like a backend web router helpers. And when we do it, as you can see, we have our category path over here. And the category path that we have over here, we can use that in our test and make the things easier. So here we have 4 tests, and one is a failure. We have our test over here, and this one is passing as well. What I'm gonna do here is just let me check a piece of our code to make this one passing. So let me just test this one. We're not gonna work with our front end, but I generated that. Even though we're not gonna use this, just to show you a way to provide Elixir application over here. So now, as you can see, we have our API, and then we have our routers over here, and then we have our path. So if I go to our router file and just modify here, for example, categories, this is going to be our new URL. When I do that, what's going to happen is that our test is going to start breaking. This is going to running and compiling as well now. And then our test is failing because we don't have the API category. And as I showed to you what I did, like using the routers, as you can see, we have our category path, which is a singular about our category controller. So one of the things that we can do to make this test passing now without making a lot of things is just using this way routes, which is almost the same, which is the same over here. You can check this if you go to your connection case. And then you can see that we have our routes over here. And then we can use routes. Sorry, I apologize for that. Category path. And then we have two parameters over here. One of them is the connection, and the another one is the function, which is index over here. So I just need to use this one as a param. Now our test is gonna passing again. Or should pass. So let me check if it's compiling the code. Let me recompile this one and try that again. So, oh my God, I made a mistake. It shouldn't be here. So this should be in category. So let me just remove this piece of code over here. And this is gonna be our default path, but here it's gonna be routes, category, underscore path, connection, and our function, which is index here. So it doesn't matter now. We can see this result over here, but it doesn't matter in our tests. But let me just block one of the users over here. And now, if I go to our Thunder client, I created a collection in our last class, so categories over here, and then I can call this one again. And as you can see, our path is not gonna work because we have no router found. It doesn't matter for us in our tests, but when we create our APIs, it really do matter for us. So let me just modify this one. Call again our APIs. It's compiling, and now we have the result. But let's go ahead and understand more about the Phoenix. And one of the steps that we are going to do is that we have our test, and we need to make this one dynamic, which is let's get the result using our database. But to do that, first we need to go to our category and make some refactors over here. So as you remember in our last class, I explained to you how the view works, how the category works as well. Not the category, sorry, but the controllers, how everything works. So one of the things that we need to make in our application now is that we need to call our application, but we're gonna use the view. I'm not gonna explain to you. Some people create APIs using like how can I say that? Some people use the APIs and using getting the result from the Ecto, but I like using the view because you can manipulate your application easily. So that's why I usually create my APIs using the view. And you can compare, you can follow my steps and then make your own conclusion. But for now, I strongly recommend you to follow every step that I'm doing now. So let's start creating that. Let me just make some modifications over here. So here, we're gonna call the render. As you can see, we have the user backend. Let me show you a little bit how it works. And then we'll have our controller. We have some plugins over here. And probably when we have plug connection, we have in some place, in somewhere we have not over here, but probably Phoenix controller. We have the render over here, and we need to call this function, and then as you can see, the view should call the same name like we have here, like user controller, and here we have the category controller, but we're gonna call our category field. So to use that, we can use the render over here. We're gonna call we're gonna use the pattern matching here, but we're gonna redirect a lot of categories. So this is our pattern matching. This is our view that we're gonna call, and we're gonna pass our category over here, categories in plural, categories. And now let's create a list of categories. And in our list, we will have ID, which is 1, 2, 3. Name, sport, and description. I'm gonna give you a tip here. We have our templates over here, and I have this HTML file. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the image learn 13. Then I generate a simple description over here. I'm gonna paste this piece of code over here, and I will duplicate this file of this map over here as well. Sport, luxury, or let me think about the category, SUV. And after that, unfortunately, we don't have our render application over here. What we can do is that we only need to go to our views. I'm going to duplicate our page view, but here, this is gonna be our category view. Category view. So as you can see, I'm providing a way to manipulate our API result using the views over here. And one of the things that we have to do is provide the same function over here called render. If you go again to our backend web, you can see that we have our view, not live view, but view. And then we are using the Phoenix controller as well. But what we can do here is that we're going to use a pattern matching over here, index.json, and we will receive categories, and we're going to return categories as well. And here we need to render a lot of categories. And to do that, you can check this function using the backend web again. I'm sorry. Phoenix controller and render. Not over here. Sorry, my bad. Import Phoenix controller and check the view helpers. Phoenix, my mistake. View. And then we can use the render, as you can see over here. And then we have render many. And this is show us some examples and how it works. So you can imagine that we have the same categories over here. And then let me show you this example again. So here we have our categories. When we call a function to render many, the result will be almost the same that a non.map render and passing the view. So as you can see, this is what we have to use. This is the way to use that. So here we can use the render many, telling that we have the categories, our module, which is going to be the same result that we have over here as well. And then we will call another pattern matching, which is going to be our category.json. And now we will have our render over here, the same pattern matching that we have over here. And we will receive category in singular, category. And then let's create a map that we're going to return our category.id, name, description. So when we do that, our test is going to rerun again. And it didn't work, sorry. We recompile this one again. This is compile again. And there you go. We have another result. So our test is breaking. And before we start refactoring our test, we need to make like, we receive this category, but we need to give the responsibilities to another place. So here, what we are gonna do is like backend categories. We're gonna build an API, and then we'll call all. And this is gonna return, let me just copy this result now, and let's create this API over here. We can create a file called categories.ex. This is gonna be our result for now, but let's create the module. I usually create the module using this way over here. Def all, and then we'll return this piece of code over here. For now, we're going to refactor this one and make this one using the database. But before we do that, we need to start refactoring our code and make this one clearer to understand. So let's recompile. Let's see the another responsibilities over here. So our test is still breaking. So unfortunately, we have the ID over here, but here, okay, so I made a mistake here. I used the arrow map. So instead of using the arrow map, we need to use the arrow function. So before we move forward, let me remove this piece of code over here. Just format the code. Recompile. Let's see the result again. And now we have the same result, but we separated the responsibility. And now one of the things that I strongly recommend you to study is that the main components about Ecto. I'm gonna give you the exercises over here. So you will have two exercises. One of them first is to study how Ecto works. And the another one is to study how view works. So let me create this exercise for you. I'm gonna provide this file as over here to you in our Telegram group. Let me just prepare some pieces of code over here. So now we have our class 2 and class 1. So one of the exercise let me prepare this piece of code for you. Exercise is you will go to Ecto Elixir and you will see this article over here, and I will recommend you to understand how the repo works. Of course, I'm gonna explain to you every step that we're gonna do here, but I recommend you to read more about Ecto and how it works. So as you can see, we have four main components, and we have the repo, the changeset, the schema, and the query. One of the things that's happening here is that the repositories is a wrapper around the data stores. This is basically when you need to consult your database, you will use the repo. You have the schema, which is map any structure from your database to structures in Elixir. The change set is a way to validate your information to insert into your database. And the query for me is amazing piece of Ecto as well. But before we start seeing the Ecto and how it works, I recommend you to understand a little bit more about migrations. So, and why? Because here we have a bunch of functions to create our database. And to start creating our database, one of the things that we have to do right now is that I'm gonna stop my test over here. And if you go to our pre folder over here, and then you can see we have the repo, and then we have the migrations. So I will execute ecto.gen migration, create underscore categories. This is gonna generate a file for us, and this file is really important for us. And before I start using the four main components from Ecto, we need to understand this piece of code over here. I'm gonna start our application again. And now, if I use the helper Ecto migration, as you can see, we have a bunch of functions over here, and we'll have a quick explanation of how the migration works. And this is basically a way to modify your schemas in your database at the same time. So if I go to our database, I'm using this plugin over here. Let me open the connection. And right here, I have a bunch of databases over here. I need to delete some of them. I have this one. This one is the same material that I'm recording right now, but using but in Portuguese. I'm gonna delete this database, this table over here, all of them, and then what I'm gonna do is provide a way to create our database. And to do that, as I mentioned to you, we have a lot of plugins over here like create, and then it shows us how to create a database over here. And our ways to generate a database over here is that we are going to use this create over here. And here we'll have this create table. Table is going to be categories, but one of the most important thing here is that we will use primary key with UID. So here we're going to type that primary key is false. Add ID, which is going to be a binary underscore ID. Primary key will be true. Add name as a string. Another field is going to be description. Here is going to be a text. But the difference is that here we have a limitation about the characters, but here we don't. And now our latest field is going to be time stamps over here. Let me show you a little bit this one real quick. So this is our timestamp, which is going to provide to us inserted at and updated at as well. So After you do that, one of the things that you'll have to do is that you need to execute mix ecto dot create. And this is gonna create our database, but we need to execute our ecto migrate. And this is gonna create to us some tables. If I go to table and refresh this one, as you can see, we have our migration, and then we have our categories, and then we have our fields like ID, name, and description. But how can I access those the informations about the categories using our application? So one of the things that it's usually very common for us is that we can use our alias to back and repo over here. And then this one, I'm gonna call this guy. Unfortunately, I did not save our code for now. But when I call this guy like backend repo, we have a bunch of functions over here. You can use the help to understand how it works. But basically, the repo, we're gonna use the selects in our database. So here we will call all category. And we still don't have this module. Let's create this one, which is gonna be backend categories category. We're gonna create a folder, categories, category.ex. Let me just copy this alias over here to create this module as well. When we do that, we save this one. When we do that, our test is gonna run, and it's not gonna pass, but we saw a little bit about the repo, and now we are gonna see a little bit about our schema. So we created this one to start getting the results from the database, but we need to have our schema. So as you can see, we have some errors over here. This is about our test. Let me just drop my database test as well. Let me rerun our application again. And let's see how the schemas works. So over here, when you want to create a schema, you need to use one of the four main components, which is gonna be the schema. So as you can see, we get a lot of results over here. So here we have the types as well, which is really great. We have this, and you have some explanations. So I recommend you to study a little bit more. I provided the exercise, but it's your role to see the exercise and do that. So here we're gonna use our ecto schema. So we'll have primary key, which is gonna be our ID, like a binary underscore ID, and auto generate as true. If we have foreign key, it's gonna be binary ID as well. And our schema, if we use like this, This is only provide a way to manipulate our schema. And when we generate a schema, this is gonna build for us a struct in Elixir. Hello, Eduardo. You taught me. No, you don't. So let me keep developing this one. So here we're gonna give the same name that I gave to this place over here, but for this case specifically, it's gonna be a category, but as a string. And now we need to provide some fields over here like description, but in this case specifically, it's gonna be a string because now this is Elixir, not database. So let me just refer to this one. And the another one is gonna be name, and we are gonna use the time stamps as well. So when I do it, and if I try to get the same result called this function, this is complaining that the backend test does not exist. And let me create the database again. Ecto.create. Again, mix Ecto.migrate as well. Let's save this file over here. And let me execute the application. Thanks, bro. See you later. So here, when we use the backend categories, all, as you can see, we have a query to our database, which is going to provide an empty list for now. But now let's keep focused to insert information into our database. And to do that, I'm going to provide to you a way, which is going to be one of the components that we have in our Ecto. So if you go to our Ecto, as you can see, we have the Ecto.Changesets over here. And to use that, you only need to go to our category module over here. And we're going to import this guy right now. And now what I usually do is that, so we already have our Changeset now. This is complaining about my call. Let me check what's happening. It shouldn't work right now, unfortunately. Oh, check. So, okay, this is because we don't have the function called Changeset, I think. We are not using the Changeset right now. So, but to start using that, let me create a function called Changeset. We're gonna send some attributes over here, and now we are gonna we're gonna pass in our struct like this one. This one is the same result like this. So as you can see, we have a struct over here. So if I start calling this function, I'm gonna provide some informations over here to start calling. Attributes over here. We're not gonna use this guy right now. So let's start create a map in Elixir called category. Description is going to be my car. Name will be Lancer. This is, oh my God, we're talking about categories, but this is a car, so apologize for that. But the most important thing now is that I'm gonna create an alias to this one, categories change set, and then we'll send our category as well. And as you can see, this is provided to us a struct, but we can have a function called cast. You can use your helpers as well. As you can see here, we need to pass the params. So this one, for now, we're gonna only send the name. Let me recompile my code. God, I hate when it's happened. I'm sorry, and I made a mistake here. We don't have our attribute as well. And when I call the change set, the result is true. But even though I have our description in our category and we have our name, we need to map those fields over here. So here, I will provide our description as well. Let me recompile the code and try that again. As you can see, now we have the changes, and the change set provides to us a struct based in our change set. We have the actions, the changes, the errors as well, the data, which is going to be our category, and the valid, which is true for now. But let's make some updates over here. One of the things that I usually have is like field, and I create a sigil using the name and description. Yes, and let me just refactor this guy over here. And then let me call this one again, and it's still working. I just create a simple refactor over here. And let's use a little bit more about the chain sets. One of the things that we can use, which is really famous, is the validate required. And then we need to tell what is the fields. So now, when I recompile the code and try that again, but for this case specifically, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna remove a field over here, map dot delete. Let me remove the, check what I created. Okay. Name. When I do it, the result now is false. And we received an error saying that the field name can't be blank. And this is a required validation. So this is one of the examples, but let's start using our repo again. But now we could call alias backend repo.insert. And now let's first create our change set. So let me execute this guy over here, but without the map.delete change set over here. And now when I call repo.insert change set, the result is that it was inserted in our database. If I try that again, and this we created a lot of categories in our database. And one of the things that we can do now is using the categories or alias backend categories dot all. And as you can see now, we got a response from the database. And if you go to our, let me just close this one. If you go to your API that we built and call categories again, the result's gonna be like three categories about cars over here, which is really great. And we made almost nothing. but we need to create our function to create our categories in our database, but using the APIs as well. So, but for now, we have our second class over here. I think we made a lot of progress. And if you check our past, let me execute all of them again. Let's just refactor this test to be like an empty list for now. And for the next class, we're gonna start inserting into our database, and we're gonna make some codes like updates and see another functions using the Elixir as well, and provide a way to manipulate the categories. And after that, we're gonna start moving faster. Okay, so let me just push this code over here. So I'm not gonna worry about the changes. I'm just gonna say like using Ecto and Changesets to manipulate categories. One, push the code. Oh my God, I did not create our branch, so I apologize for that. But this is our class for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give us our like. This is very important for our YouTube channel. And share with your friends. And see you for the next week. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.